Hey, listen, I want to invite you to use just a little bit of imagination for this trip, because as we travel north, we're also going to try and travel back through time a little bit. You see, the year is 1893, it's December 1893, and a young man by the name of Thomas Shelby has just arrived at the small port of Albany on the south coast of Western Australia. Now, don't bother Googling Thomas Shelby because he doesn't exist. I've just made him up. You see, Thomas comes from Sydney town, and his parents are from a long line of good quality Irish convict stock that are helping to grow this big country of ours. And Thomas has decided he's going to make his mark and hopefully his fortune on the goldfields of Western Australia, because he's heard that the latest and greatest Australian gold rush, it's on. In Thomas's possession, he's got a pick, a shovel, a bedroll, prospecting pan. He's got a good pair of boots. He's going to need those. Now, Thomas has got one heck of a journey in front of him. You see, he's got to walk, I said walk, several hundred kilometres to take him from the port town of Albany all the way north to a place called Flies Flat. And that is where gold has been discovered and is going nuts right now. It's just outside the town of Coolgardie, right in the heart of the West Australian goldfields. There's a newly opened track. It's just been cut through. It goes almost directly north from Broome Hill all the way to Flies Flat. And it's cutting off about 2 to 3 weeks in everyone's journey. And those 2 to 3 weeks could be critical, because that could be the difference between staking your claim and going home empty-handed. So, 18-year-old Thomas Shelby is about to undertake one heck of a journey through some of the most inhospitable land in Australia, and he's going to do the whole thing on foot. You see, making your mark and striking it rich in the West Australian goldfields was one thing, but just bloody getting there was another. I'd like to welcome you to the Holland track.
We keep searching for that road to nothing at all. This path will tear us apart if we want to go this far. We keep on hurting, even though we've given it all. This path will tear us apart if we want to go this far. If we want to go this far. We keep searching for that road to nothing at all. This path will tear us apart if we want to go this far. We keep on hurting, even though we've given it all. This path will tear us apart if
Now, in order to really tell the tale of the Holland track, we're going to start right back before it even existed. You see, in order to get to the goldfields, it was an arduous journey by rail and then on foot. Trouble was, the rail line took you way further out to the west, meaning you had to come a long way east by foot to get you into the goldfields. There had to be a better way. It was proposed that if a track could be blazed from the southern port all the way north, it could cut off at least 2 to 3 weeks on that journey. Now, many folks tried. They got turned back. They said it was too arduous, there's no water. Land's too tough, can't be done. 1893, bloke by the name of John Holland stepped up. Now, John was a local down that southern area, and he knew this northern bush well. He was a sandalwood cutter, a roo shooter, and a renowned bushman. He said he could do it, so in April, he set off with 3 of his mates and a few ponies, heap of supplies. 2 months and 4 days later, they made it to Coolgardie. But this is what's amazing about that trek. Not only did they make it to Coolgardie, but they'd blazed a path that could be used by the average horse and cart, meaning they had cut the longest cart track ever done in Australian history. Unbelievable to think that they did that at a time, this is my turn off right here, unbelievable to think that they did that at a time when there was absolutely no mechanised items whatsoever. It was all hand tools and a good dose of gumption. The old Holland track, though, was only in operation, unfortunately, for about 3 years. You see, that rail line that I spoke of continued from the west all the way east, eventually depositing people in Coolgardie. So, of course, that made it significantly quicker than walking this track right here. So it was out of action within 3 years, but it is estimated that around 18,000 people used that track in those 3 years in order to deposit them to the north. So it was no less of a feat So from around 1896, 1897, the old track here, she wasn't used anymore. She was forgotten, she was abandoned, and nature reclaimed it. It just about grew back over again. Let's now though, jump forward about 100 years. The year now is 1992. We've jumped forward, like I said, about 100 years. Local farmers in the area, well, they've decided on an idea. A bloke's jumped in his tractor and he's decided to try and open up this northern section of the Holland track. And he's done it. 1993, exactly 100 years after John Holland first pushed this track through here, it's been reopened by locals so that us four-wheel drivers can use it once again. And I reckon that is a pretty bloody good story. That the Holland track began on the south coast. Now look, you can still do the southern half of this track, but it's a bit tame these days. You see, its route goes through what's now farmland and it's all kind of on main roads. A lot of the original track actually was turned into some of the roads down there, so it's not a bad journey, but it's nowhere near as adventurous as this northern half that we're going to do. So this is 300 kilometres of outback track that runs from the little town of Hyden all the way through to Coolgardie. Now, I'm right on the cusp. A lot of puddles out here, excuse me for a second. I'm right on the cusp at the moment of winter. Now, I've been checking the weather. We've only had 3 days of rain out here this month. We've got a big front coming through in about 4 days, but I should be well off the track by then. I'm not too concerned about that. But even those 3 days of rain out here, this place is going to be pretty darn wet. Not as wet as it could be, but it's still going to be pretty darn wet. And that's one thing. Oh, look at this one. This is a big long one, this one. It's one thing that catches a lot of people out on the Holland track. It's just how wet it can be, and some of the bog holes out here, I kid you not, will swallow a vehicle. I'm going to try and avoid those if I possibly can. But one thing I'm not going to be able to avoid is getting muddy. That's half the fun, right? Take this left-hand turn off the main track here, off the main Holland track now, and head into a little spot called Sheoak Camp. Haven't been in here for a long time. It's got an old trig point on a rocky outcrop in here that I want to go and check out again, see if it's still there, because it's been there since, believe it or not, 1906. So we'll get in there and we'll have a quick look. All right, this cracking little spot here is called Sheoak Rocks. It's been named after the sheoaks that you'll see fringing all around the rocks here. It's a real popular campsite out this way too. As I said, this time of year, there's a fair bit of water on the ground out here, but yeah, no, there's still some cracking campsites out here. Now, as I've said in the past, as I said before, you don't need much of an elevation to get a view. Here's that trig point just here. Trig point's been here since 1906. Survey point, that is. And the reason it's here, of course, is because once you get up here, have a look at that. You can see for miles around you from up here. Now, these sheoaks that surround these granite outcrops, we're going to see a lot of these granite outcrops. This is going to become a real feature of the Holland track, these granite bits, and there's a lot to explain about them. That's for future me. These Sheoaks you see along the edge, the local inhabitants, local Aboriginals called them quowl. Now I'm not sure if I've got that pronunciation right. Quowl, I think that's right. And it was actually named after the sound the wind makes when it goes through the Sheoaks. If you've ever camped in Sheoaks, it's a bit spooky, that wind noise. It kind of, in the middle of the night, it kind of sounds like people whispering and can put the wind up you a bit if you don't know what it is. Sheoak Rocks, cracking campsite. If you ever come through this way, just remember, you're quite elevated here, you're quite exposed, which means that if the winds come up, you're gonna be really wind blasted through here, and you'll probably have a sleepless night because you'll hear the Sheoaks whispering at you. Oh man. One thing you'll notice in these areas where you get that low-lying water, like we've got at the base of those rocks there, the number of midgies that seem to come from absolutely nowhere and smoke you. I just, getting that bit of footage then, I got absolutely smoked. I might keep that in mind when I choose tonight's camp, I think. Man, there were billions of the little buggers. None when I first got there, and they found me. How did they find me? Have they got some sort of futuristic GPS system that we don't know about? Here's one of those washaways, big bog holes that you get out here now. This one here doesn't look to be too bad at all. I'll just get into him. Yeah, he's got a pretty good base, not too bad. Some of them, however, I've had mates come out here and limp home on a tow truck at the other end, get towed the whole way through. Now, touch wood, I'm gonna try and be a bit sensible, and that's not gonna happen. Some of the bog holes out here are absolutely massive. And for an area that doesn't get a whole heap of rainfall, because it's just got, that water's just got nowhere to run off to. If there's a hole of any sort and you get any rain, she fills up and stays there for a long period of time. So that's one thing that it is quite notorious for out here. We're starting to see a bit of firewood. That's good, that's good. We've got to start thinking about camp pretty soon. Now, as I mentioned earlier, Holland track pushed through, 100 years later, was reopened, 1993, the centenary, 100 years later. It was several years after that that it was adopted by the Toyota Land Cruiser Club of Western Australia. Now, geez, they do a good job out here. They keep the track open for one. They come out and they have busy bees, pick up rubbish, camping days. They've erected signs out here for popular spots such as Sheoak Rock. And it's because they're looking after it that this track's staying open. Now, don't be fooled. If the Toyota Land Cruiser Club weren't looking after this, local governments aren't going to do it. There's no money in it for them, you see. Why would they bother putting a bloke out here that you got to pay to come and keep this track open, to keep the rubbish off it, to keep it updated? There's no way they'd do it. So it's because of clubs like the Toyota Land Cruiser Club of Western Australia, a four-wheel drive club, for goodness sake. That's the reason, oh, it's a bouncy bit, crikey Moses. That's the reason this track is open. It's the reason I'm driving on it right now. So to the ladies and gentlemen, the Toyota Land Cruiser Club, you're doing a bloody good job. Thumbs up from me. Now, I gotta find a campsite. Ah, that's not bad. How's that look? That looks pretty darn perfect to me. Wasn't going to camp here, but it's an absolutely cracking second spot. This is called Wattle Camp. Now, a lot of the camps out here are characterised by these granite outcrops that you see everywhere. Now, there's a good reason for that. I'll get into that later. For now, I'm going to set up camp, get the fire going, and crack an ice cold beer. That's going to take me about 10 minutes to do the whole lot. For you folks, I reckon I can do it in 30 seconds. Let's see how I go. that is all we're gonna need. I think you can see what's going on here. I'm bloody starving, it's time for dinner. When I was thinking about this trip, I figured for my first night out, I really wanted to do something that I reckon old John Holland and all the other guys that came through here would appreciate. And of course, none other than the humble rabbit. You see, the rabbits were introduced, well, by a bunch of very keen hunters way back in the day. And every rabbit in Australia, this one included, popped up because of only 24 rabbits that were ever brought to Australia. And rabbits doing what rabbits do best, 24 rabbits soon became a whole heap of rabbits. Now, this poor bugger here, he's actually from my neighbour's backyard. I got him with the bow and arrow. He's actually a very unlucky rabbit, this one, because he's not actually the rabbit I was trying to hit with the arrow. I missed the rabbit I was trying to hit. And in doing so, the noise that the arrow ricocheting off a tree made, this bugger stuck his head up. And, well, I don't need to go into the gory details. That's why his head's not there anymore. But so we're going to do rabbit tonight. Now, there's a bit of a thing. Obviously, rabbits swept through here. 1901, there were so many they put up the famous rabbit-proof fence, which is actually to our south down here, to try and control these buggers getting into pastoral lands. But they became an important source of food for many of the early explorers throughout Australia. And there's a thing called rabbit poisoning that was quite rife through the area back in the day. And rabbit poisoning was not actually to do with the rabbit itself, in the sense that rabbit is beautiful to eat. If you haven't tried it, I urge you to do so. Rabbit poisoning was because that's all the early pioneers were eating. Because they were so prolific out here, they were so easy to shoot and catch. It's all they were eating, breakfast, lunch and dinner. And of course, when you're only eating something like a rabbit, which is extremely lean, very little in the way of fats in it, you're going to get crook. Not because of the rabbit, but because you've got nothing else coming into your system that you need, your fruit and veggies. A bit like those sailors on the long journeys. Geez, that's a smoky fire over there, but that's good. It's a bit like those sailors on the long journey. They get scurvy because all they were eating was the basics on the boat. It's not because they were going hungry, it's just because they weren't getting enough nutrients. And rabbit poisoning was something real common for the old pioneers out here. Now, what I didn't do when I first got this bad boy, I need to just break his rib cage down the middle. This is a bit of an unpleasant task. I'm just going to get under that. You might want to look away for a second. Okay, so that's the rib cage split open. Once that's split open, you just want to butterfly him out like that. And the reason I'm doing that, of course, is so he can lay flat. And the way I'm going to cook this rabbit, there's so many different ways. Look how fat he is. There's so many different ways of cooking rabbit. And if you're thinking rabbit, what the hell do you do with it? Think chicken. It's exactly the same. It doesn't taste anything like chicken. In fact, if I was to describe the way rabbit tastes, I'd say it tastes a lot like rabbit. The way we're going to cook this bad boy tonight is one of the simplest ways, and the way it probably would have been done out here back in the early days too. I'm going to whack him straight on the barbecue. So tonight we're having barbecued rabbit, but I want to add a little bit to it. I want to just go a little bit crazy with the old marinades on there and just add a little bit to him. So I've got myself some secret. This is some dry rub that I've just created. It's just basically just chilies. It's got some salt in there, of course. It's got a little bit of sugar, so you get those. Caramelizations, I think is the word. And I'm just going to rub this bad boy down with the old marinade like that. Just get him all over him like that. Just rub him down. He doesn't mind it. Look at that. He loves it. Whack him over like that. Oop, settle down, bugs. Whack him over like that. Get him on his legs. Those legs are the best parts, man. Ooh. I like the ribs too. I like to bit of muck around on the ribs. I eat a lot of rabbit. I try to hunt rabbits as much as I possibly can when I'm out because they're a difficult thing to hunt. It's a good challenge with the bow and arrow, as you can imagine. They're only small. And they are a beautiful feed. So there's my marinated rabbit. And I'm going to do him whole. I'm not going to do anything with him. He's going to go whole like that. Now look, I'm just going to give him 20 minutes to think about himself. Just going to leave him there for a bit. Give him 20 minutes to think about things, and then I'm going to whack him on the fire. In that time, I'm just going to do some spuds and some alfoil and some basic veggies. I'm not going to go nuts tonight. I'm a bit knackered, to be honest. I'm going to be in bed pretty early, but oh man, that is going to be so good. Rabbit on the barbie. Look at that. That is going to be next level. I'm just going to crank that barbie up a little bit. I'll come back to you when I put it on. Catch you in a bit. Alrighty, folks. Bugs is on. It's going to be about a 40-minute cook. Going to turn him continuously. Slow and easy going. I'd like to think that I'm doing the old pioneers a bit of a favour here by cooking rabbit tonight. Of course, I've got a few modern conveniences. Big GU Patrol wouldn't have had one of them, would they? But if you've never tried rabbit, trust me, it's nothing like chicken. It is in a class of its own. Look at that smoke coming up. Woo-hoo. I'm excited. We're going to give this a bit. I'm going to have a couple of beers. I'll come back and show you how it's going. Oh, look at that. All right, I'll admit, it ain't the prettiest thing you've ever seen, but this is a wild caught, wild harvested rabbit. Now, what we're gonna do is just break him up a bit. So I cut the back leg. Oh my goodness, it's cooked to perfection. Cut the back legs off, cut down through the rib bones here. Yes, in case you're wondering, I have washed my cutting board from when I cut it up when it was raw. Just gonna do one more cut here, folks. I know it's a horrible part. No one likes to see this. Oh, look at that, man. That is some rabbit legs. Now, bit of salt and pepper. Because remember, I didn't put much on when it came. The seasoning didn't contain much of this, especially not salt. Now that, folks, I know it doesn't look that fabulous, but that is a meal fit for the Holland track if ever there was one. Wild caught, barbecued and marinated rabbit over the coals. I tell you what, if you've never had rabbit, it is nothing like chicken. Gamey, tender, juicy, but it's a whole other kettle of fish altogether. Oh man. Well, I'm going to stop chewing in your ear. I'm going to take my rabbit over there. I'm going to have another beer, stoke up the fire, and I think I've done the old timers proud. Barbecued rabbit on the Holland track. The best four-wheel drive track you've never heard of. It's going to be a cold night. Let's get that fire going, finish off this rabbit, couple of beers. Folks, where are you? This is living. This is as good as it gets. All right, I'll catch you in the morning. Jaffles in the morning are the only way to go. If you've ever camped with me, you'll know just how passionate I am about jaffles. They're an art form. Now, remember yesterday I was telling you about these granite outcrops and how most of the camps along the Holland, there's one right here of course, how most of the camps along the Holland are situated on these granite outcrops. Well, there's a reason for that. You see, for many months of the year, they will store water in the depressions. You can see one down here. Now, there's a fair bit of water in some of these depressions. I mean, some of them you could swim in, some of them, they're really quite deep. This one here is an absolute cracking example. She's not very deep, this, but because it's granite, it doesn't leach through, and that water stays there for a long period of time. And it's these granite outcrops that dictated where the early pioneers would go each day because they had to water the horses. And this was the only source of water out here, except for one other, which I'm hoping to show you today or tomorrow. We'll see how we go. So every morning, John Holland would get up early and he would do an advance ride out from camp and he'd try and locate the next lot of granite outcrops, and it's in that direction with a bit of north into it, obviously, that he would head each day to try and make it further up the track. So it's these granite outcrops that are so darn important out here. They were very important to the traditional people out here, of course. It's still important to us today. And, of course, they make a beautiful spot to camp. Sunrise, jaffle on the barbie. Woo! I'm going to get a bit of breakfast into me. I'm going to get packed up, maybe have one more sneaky cup of coffee. Whew, get back on the track. How good is it? How good is it? All right, always double check your campsites, just in case you left anything behind, check for rubbish, etc, etc. Well, that was a fantastic evening. Great campsite. And I tell you what, if if you've never started the day with a spaghetti bolognese jaffle, you haven't lived. That is the breakfast of champions. Now, I've got a fair old distance to cover today. I want to try and get a long way north up to a place called Namma Hole. There's a lot of history up there, and there's a well, I won't give too much away, but there's something up there I want to show you as well, which I think is pretty cool. But to get there, I've got a lot of distance to cover, so pedal to the metal today. I'm going to try and make up a bit of ground. However, I'm going to be stopping before another good campsite just there. I missed that one. I don't know whether you can see that one. It's a big open one. There's a lot of big campsites out here. Just up here though, I'm going to be stopping before I get too far, because there's something up here that I reckon, as a bit of a nature nerd, it's pretty darn cool. Yeah. All right. This bit of kit right here, this is a Malleefowl nest. A Malleefowl is a native bird, lives out here. This is a really intriguing bit of kit because what they do is they reuse this for generations, and they lay their eggs in the center there. It's quite big, as you can see. It's quite a, it's a huge amount of dirt. They lay their eggs in the center part over there, and the rotting vegetation, just like a compost heap, gets hot, and it incubates the eggs in there for them. And they keep it at a constant temperature of about 30, 33 degrees in there. And when the chicks hatch, this is the amazing thing, when the chicks hatch out of there, they scratch their way to the surface and then take off into the bush and look after themselves. This one's still active here. So because this is still active, and the fact that Malleefowl are extremely endangered, they're threatened species. I've only ever seen 2 in the wild in my entire life. They're trying to preserve this area, so that's why there's fencing around it. But the old track, oh, well, the old ones, they didn't care about Malleefowl nests. It used to go straight past here. Your tyres would almost go over the edge of this nest. So they've put a boundary up. They've rerouted the track around it ever so slightly by about 20 metres, and it continues on down through there. But I reckon that there, to me anyway, I'm a bit of a nature nerd, a bird that digs a mound, buries its eggs, uses its beak to check the temperature, incubates the eggs under the ground, the chicks then dig their way to the surface and take off and look after themselves. Come on. If that's not nature doing the best thing it possibly can, I don't know what is. Nature, you are crazy. All right, let's get back on the track. Alrighty, it's that time. If you've only just sort of bumped into AUSolo on the YouTubes and you don't know what's going on, what the heck is this bloke doing just bumbling around in the bush by himself? It's time for me to explain the concept. AUSolo was thought up by me, was put into action by me, is filmed by me, is planned by me, is presented by me, is edited by me, uploaded to YouTube by me, and in a lot of instances is only really watched by me. But AUSolo, as the name suggests, is a 100% solo effort. I get no help from anyone. I do check the web for advice on how to do certain things, especially when it comes to editing, because I've got no bloody idea how to do that. But otherwise, AUSolo is 100%. So, as I always say, if the camera work is shaky, if you're out of focus, if the presenting is bad, if you've got no idea what the heck is going on, it's because I'm doing it all myself, and I wouldn't have it any other way. AUSolo. Thanks for joining, eh? Well, this little rise we've got up ahead here, it's none other than the impressive Mount Holland. I think they were using a little bit of artistic license when they named that bad boy, because, well, it's more of a gentle rise than a mountain, but gentle rise Holland doesn't have quite the same ring to it, I think you'll agree. However, out here, so flat out here that you don't have to have much of a hill to get a view. It's worth just going up, parking, and having a quick look, because it might not be a mountain, but it still gives you a view. I've just pulled up into here for a bite of lunch, and whilst the billy's boiling for a cuppa, I thought I might just give you a look at what is one of the, I guess you'd call them very, very typical mapped campsites on the Holland. This will be it here. I'll give you a look. Sorry about the wind. That's the expanse we're talking about. You know, it's a big area. It's a really big, big area. And there's one just like this on the opposite side of the track as well. So if you're with a big group of people and you want to kind of spread out of an evening, you know, maybe you've got someone who snores, you want to get them down the other end and come together for a communal fire, these are the areas to look for, and they are on your mapping software. You can't miss them. This one's called bush camps. Now, 2 bits of advice on these. Firstly, if the wind picks up like it is today, and it is winter or spring or even autumn, man, it's cold, because you're at elevation up here, you see. That wind just whips through. You'll think you're in Antarctica. Secondly, because it is a popular group camping area, you have a look around here, there's no wood. You're not going to find wood at these places, so think ahead a bit, 5 k's before camp, grab yourself some wood, and I reckon these spots like this here, champagne camping on the Holland. Absolutely bloody magic they are. Look at that. Oh, that is not bad at all. Well, stop for a bite of lunch in here. On the menu today, of course, we got a cup of billy tea, and I'm chewing on a cold rabbit's leg. You know, a heck of a lot has changed since John Holland pushed this track through here in 1893, but one thing hasn't changed, and that's lunch. Oh man. Yep, it's right here. Well, this looks like a fence, doesn't it? This is the famous state barrier fence, or rabbit-proof fence. Hard to believe that this was made, this and several others were made in Western Australia because of 24 rabbits. Not literally, not 24, but 24 became, because rabbits do what rabbits do so well, millions. And this was erected in the early 1900s, after rabbits crossed the Nullarbor and started to really infiltrate into the croplands of the West Australian agricultural regions to the south of here. So they made a fence. Now, the mind boggles, but it's the truth. They made several of these. These days they are still in operation. This is still here to keep, these days it's here to keep mostly dogs out. There's a lot of feral dogs out this way. But the old barrier fence, or rabbit-proof fence, pretty famous, pretty iconic. There's a movie named after the rabbit-proof fence called The Rabbit-Proof Fence. It's about 2 Aboriginal girls who were taken from their family. Sad story. They escaped and they got back home, back to their homelands by following the rabbit-proof fence. It's a remarkable story. If you get a chance, check it out. This for me, however, right now signifies I've got to do a few Ks through some pretty vast sort of territory. Actually reminds me a lot of the Nullarbor Plain, this section through here. There's no trees and it's just flat and low and goes forever. So I'm going to get stuck into it, make a mile. I've forgotten this was here. This is a little plaque down here for the Holland track centenary, of course, 1893 to 1993. And plaque down there, and you've got a little box of goodies here. You can write your name in it, etc. Leave something, take something if you want. There's all sorts of things in here. There's a ping pong ball. I don't know why you'd need that out here, but anyway. What I'm interested in is seeing who was out here last, because the only track I've been following out here is a motorbike track. Where are we? Where are we? Here we go. 3 days ago. Will. Hey, Will, if you're watching this, get in touch with me because you were on a DR650. That's you, Will. 3 days ago. And then the last lot to come through here was a bloke called Toby. And that was 11 days ago. So you can see, she's pretty remote out here. Oh, I should put my name in here, shouldn't I? I should put my name in. Hang on. Oh, there's another photo. That's nice. I like that. All right, I'll put my name in here. If the maps are correct, this should be a campsite in here. I can't quite see it yet because of the undergrowth. Turn it and have a look, because I'm starting to get a bit thirsty. Been a long day. Oh, that's a campsite. Look at that. Oh, thanks for coming. Thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure. Will you look at that? Well, okay then. I suppose that'll do. Not too bad. These old buses need a little bit of TLC from time to time just to keep them going. Get asked a lot, how do you prep for a big trip like this one or a remote trip like this one? I think you can bolt any modification you like under the sun onto your truck, but your truck's got to be well put together and you've got to have a team behind you, I reckon anyway, that knows what they're doing. I sort of take both my trucks to someone that I can really trust. Over the years, that's been Adventure 4x4 in Rockingham. G'day to Ben, Grom, Tom and the boys and girls down in Rockingham, Adventure 4x4. They pretty much don't say no to anything when it comes to four-wheel driving. If I walk in there and say, boys, I want to go and do the Holland track solo and film it, they say, give us your truck, let's make sure you're going to get back home alive and safe. That's important. They froth over four-wheel drives, and I think if you're looking for a company to maintain and look after your truck, have a look at their car park. See what they're driving to work. There was an old Corolla. I don't know, maybe they're not into four-wheel driving. The guys at Adventure 4x4, they froth on the stuff, and so big thanks to them for helping me out when it comes to trips like this. As for me, this old girl, she'll bloody keep going for decades. She loves it. Come on. Well, I tell you, as far as campsites go, that one has to be up there with one of the best I've stayed at anywhere in Australia. Absolutely spot on. And that steak last night, man, if I could cook steak like that all the time, I'd be a well-renowned chef. I don't think so. I'm just about done with the Holland track. I've literally only got a couple of hours of fairly easy cruising to go. We've just pulled up, I'll give you a look, at another one of these flat granite outcrops, of which there are so many along this track. But this one's a little bit special, this one. I've just got to try and find what it is I'm looking for. It's here somewhere, I know it, I've seen it before. Yep. Okay, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. This puddle right here is way more than just that, you see. This is a Namma hole. You get Namma holes all over the country, and what they are, or how you characterise them, is a large depression in the rock down in there with a small opening. Well, what's that all about? It's kind of the outback water tank, if you like. Long after this is thoroughly overflowing, this one. Long after this puddle around here is all dried up, these rocks will be placed back on top, and that void down there would hold water for months after it's rained. Now, it's really quite deep. That goes in and under that rock. That goes right up under that. It's quite a hollowed out area in there. I would guess that would hold, that'd easily be holding 40, 50 litres of water in there in that hole. These rocks go over the top. Now that acts for two reasons. Firstly, it stops small animals falling in there, drowning and fouling the water. And secondly, by putting these over the top, you stop the sun hitting there and of course, evaporation. So the water stays a heck of a lot longer. You can only imagine how important these Namma holes would have been to the local Aborigines out here. This would have been an amazing source of water for them, and they would have known where dozens of these are all around the country. Of course, John Holland, he relied on these as well coming through here, because these were a primary source of water for his horses and for future people coming through. So these Namma holes were super important. Now, this particular Namma hole right here, it's actually got a name. It's called Agnes Namma hole, and it was named after none other than John Holland's wife, who actually did the Holland track in 1893, December of, right about the same time our mythical character, that's right, old Thomas Shelby, was doing it as well. And Agnes is thought to have been the very first woman to ever do the Holland track. Well, she got a rock hole named after her. She must be stoked. Well, this little bit of kit right here, this is that Thursday rock. Again, she's not real high up, but the thing with this flat country, like I keep saying, you only got to get a little bit of elevation, you can see for absolutely miles. For John Holland, this is one of his last stopping off points before he made his way from now to Victoria Rock and then into Coolgardie. All this area through here, back in the gold rush days, would have been teeming with people, which, as I sit on top of Thursday Rock right now, all on my lonesome, it's very hard to believe. Magic part of the world though. Some amazing rock formations out here. Weathering in the hand of time, it's truly remarkable what can happen. Look at these. They've all been split open. You've got great big cavities in the middle of them. Really impressive stuff. Well, old Thursday Rock here, if you're going south to north like I am, this is kind of the last feature you're going to see on the track. And from here, it's an 18k run now out to a more major road. And it's that road that we're going to hit, the junction of that road we're going to hit, is where the Holland track actually became a road, well, much later in life than when old John Holland pushed through here. So once I get onto that road, it's kind of the end of the four-wheel drive stuff. And it's an easy run into Coolgardie from there. Holland track. What a trip. What a trip. Well, we did it. This marks the end of the four-wheel drive section at the northernmost point of the Holland track, and from here it's high-speed gravel all the way into Coolgardie. I, however, have one last stop I want to make when I get into town. I thought it'd be really appropriate that we finish this journey here, the final resting place of none other than John Holland himself, and he's buried here with his wife, Agnes. Now, having driven that country a few times, I just take my hat off to the blokes that pioneered everything out here, not just the tracks, but everything, the goldfields, the whole lot. But can you imagine John and his three mates cutting a track through that country in 2 months, 300 miles with nothing more than hand tools, and not only cutting it, but making it wide enough to put a cart up it? Unbelievable. Different time, different people, if you ask me. Folks, I really hope you've enjoyed a bit of a journey down the Holland track. If you ever get a chance, like I've said before, please give it a go, because it's one of those tracks that you just have to do. Best track you've never heard of. For me, I've got a fair old hike here from Coolgardie all the way back home, but I've got a couple of beers and a sneaky lamb chop or two in the fridge, so I reckon I might do an overnighter on the way back down and just extend this trip by one more night. Might catch you out here, folks. Sure hope I do. Till next time, cheers, eh? We've just pulled up here. No, we haven't. It's only me. I'm doing this alone. All right, be professional. Be professional, son. All right. So I'm going to get stuck into it, make a mile. Of course, I can't leave my camera there, can I? That'd be stupid. Can't leave me bloody camera there, no. Got to take him with me. What was that? Whoops, I meant to turn you off, not on, sorry.